So the next speaker will be Thorben Grosser. He's going to talk on marketing, and actually, I'd like to introduce you somehow. And or are you going to?
Are you introducing me, or am I introducing myself?
Oh, we can do it both.
Go on.
So Thorben actually works for a Toronto-based startup called EventMobi, which does event applications for conferences like this one or bigger conferences. And for now, he actually got a bachelor degree.
Bachelor of Honors.
Sorry, Bachelor of Honors from the Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh, in Scotland. And he's, aside of this, he's actually a teller, a projectionist, and a maker at the Sinisura in Eschenach. So have a lot of fun with Thorben, and yes.
Thank you for this pleasant word. So as Charles said, my background is event management and marketing management. So I started working in a small cinema in Echternach, actually just outside, well, in the east of Luxembourg. If anybody of you has been to the open air cinema in Echternach, that's what we organize. And this is kind of how this whole passion for organizing events spun off. And this is also how I ended up working for a startup that takes care of solutions for events, for conferences, trade shows, and so on. My talk today is why marketing departments should not exist. It started off as a talk about why marketing should not exist, and then I realized, well, actually marketing is quite a neat thing, so let's reframe it. I am inclined to change the title again, but that's for future versions, I guess. So the first thing I would like to show you is a 2.5-minute video by a comedian I really, really appreciate. So I'm not sure, because we haven't got external speakers, if the Mac speakers will do or not. If not, I'm sure that there's some way of getting the proper audio in the recording of tonight's sessions, wherever they will land. So bear with me, and let's see if we can get this running so that still everybody hears what Bill Hicks, his name is, has to say. Nothing, apparently. Oh, there he is. So just let me put this on again. So basically, Bill Hicks is being really cynical about marketing. And for those sitting in the back, if you didn't understand, basically his idea is that all marketers should collectively kill themselves because they are evil persons, and some of them are maybe, some of them are not. I wrote a blog post on my website, thorbengrosser.eu, talking about that, and I got verbally abused by people from all around the world, how evil marketers are. But I want to take the problem with marketing from a different approach. So Bill Hicks thinks marketing should not exist. And to parts I support that claim, but on different grounds. So marketing should not exist in the form it exists today. So there shouldn't be marketing managers running companies anymore, and people should think more about the structure of companies. So if people are marketing managers, maybe they should be building paper planes instead? Well, not quite. Let me explain my point. Traditionally, marketing has been seen as a department within a corporation, a company. So for the first half of the century and up to the 60s and 70s, basically if you had the executive layer of the company talking directly to advertising companies. Anybody of you in here watches Mad Men? I see some people smiling but not daring to raise their hands. So basically this is how it's been for a long while. So advertising has been kind of devised by executives to bring products out, but that has been it. But then slowly people started to adopt a more scientific approach. They started doing research. They started trying to figure how can we actually sell not only sell but make products better. So, however, because those companies were departmentalized forever since, you know, Taylor came up with product lines and so on, they thought, well, let's make marketing a department. And basically, that worked fine for a while, but it's getting clunky, and marketing is having a problem right now, which still some companies haven't realized. So I'm going to focus on 3 problems first that marketing has and that make marketing as a department obsolete. So the first one is that marketing got too big. The second one is that marketing should now be in the structure, or should go down in the structure of companies. And the third one is that marketing got out of control. So let me briefly explain those 3. Marketing got too big in the first place. So firstly, and for those who know more about marketing, this is incredibly boring to you, but you need to point it out because people still think that marketing is advertising, when in fact it is not. So there are different ways of explaining what marketing is, and different models. So there's one model called the 4 or the 7P model, which is a standard model you learn in high school or university, but it's a good model to help you understanding what marketing is. So they define there are 7 Ps, which are product, price, place, and promotion for products that you can physically buy. And for services, additionally, there's the process, the people involved, and the physical evidence. Now, we could talk for longer about what this means, but it's just important to see that marketing essentially goes beyond just advertising. Marketing happens in every segment where a product is interfacing with a user. So it's not only about getting it out, about having fancy adverts, about having business cards, about having ads on Google. It's also about the service after you bought something maybe, or the cup of coffee you get at the hairdresser. All those elements are part of marketing. And this has just been exponentially growing. And this is so big that essentially a whole department should not have the responsibility to stem it. So essentially for that reason, marketing departments should be redesigned. The other thing I'm pledging is that marketing should go down in the structure. So because marketing has so many contact points, you can't possibly, let's think of something practical. Let's think of Auchan, that badass supermarket on Kirchberg. If the cashier is not being nice to you because she's having a bad day, that's getting a bad rep. And maybe the marketing department says, well, but you know, that's human resource. It's their problem. They should care about it. When essentially I would argue that this is not true, because this is a marketing problem, because the cashier is the person interfacing with the client, the customer. And so it is essentially their problem. And so because marketing, just this one example, marketing touches human resources, but marketing touches all elements of companies. So you can't, all departments essentially, because many companies are, for quite good reasons, departmentalized. So you should be aware that marketing can't only sit in this small nest, but needs to be much, much, much broader. Shouldn't be a department, but in fact should be in every department. The third point I'm making is that marketing got out of control. Now, what I mean by this is pretty simple to explain. Because marketing is in every element where a company interfaces with a client. If I have a friend who's working for ministry or for an administration de I don't know what, and they write, oh my God, everybody in my job is so stupid. Why am I here? Then this is a huge problem, again, for marketing. And the problem is that a department can't control those things. A department can control and shouldn't control what people are doing in their private lives. And the department can also not take all of the warnings in order to avoid those things from happening. So essentially, for example, social media disasters become part of the marketing problem of a company, but are part of the entire company, because everybody in the company, whether they're taking a car manufacturing line, whether they are the CEO of Volkswagen, or whether they are just cleaning the factory of Volkswagen, every person becomes the face of Volkswagen, and companies should be aware of that. So if I say we should abolish marketing departments, and there are many, many more reasons why you should do that, other than those three, what should we do instead? Now, there are many approaches, but there's one approach I've learned about quite a lot from one of my mentors who used to be the CMO for telecom company AT&T in Canada. And he came up with this idea which I thought was fantastic, was called design thinking. And the first question is that I asked myself is, well, what has the whole thing to do with marketing? And I'm not sure if I'm managing to get the point across why design thinking is related to marketing. But if you go home, if you think about it once more, if you read a little more about design thinking, you might be able to get the grasp of that. So in order to kick off my introduction to design thinking then, let me start by what's the easiest thing to do? Let's say what Wikipedia says. And they say, design thinking refers to the methods and processes for investigating ill-defined problems, acquiring information, analyzing knowledge, and positing solutions in the design and planning fields. As a style of thinking, it is generally considered the ability to combine empathy for the context of a problem, creativity in the generation of insights and solutions, and rationality to analyze and fit solutions to the context. Now, I don't know what this means. And, well, now I understand after I've learned much more about design thinking. But let me introduce, oh, I forgot to change my slide. Let me introduce what the idea behind it is. So instead of marketing departments being a department, in a design thinking approach, they would become a function in the company, and you would kind of reverse the classical engineering line approach. So a first step in achieving that would be to create transparency. So let everybody know in an organization what the organization is actually doing. So I'm not suspecting that anybody is not knowing what the company is working for is doing. But I suspect that many people don't have an idea of, for example, what the vision is of a company, what a company wants to achieve in the broader picture. And actually, you might think those things are secret and they're a plan and so on. Yes, maybe. But if you give people an idea of what your vision is, what you're planning to achieve, you actually manage to give people the opportunity to take ownership in your company. They will start feeling proud for your company. And this is a first step in order to avoid social media disasters. If everybody loved working for the Luxembourgish government, nobody would complain about it. But then again, for example, the government is a good example because it's so big and the direction is changing every so often. Sometimes it might be difficult for employees to understand what the actual vision is. So in a second step, in order to implement design thinking through, or marketing through design thinking in your company, we need to rework the research and development cycle, or the R&D cycle. So because marketing actually starts way before research and development. And I'm happy that we're having this talk today in this co-working space, because a lot that is about design thinking finds its very application in co-working spaces. So I guess design thinking is a natural approach to co-working spaces. So traditionally, in a classical assembly line, you would have a marketing department that would identify a need. So we need something, we need a mouse. And then the marketing department would go to the research and development section and say, well, we want a mouse and it needs to have those things. It needs to have 2 buttons to click left and right, and it needs to be able to track the position. And then R&D goes on, tries to find the best solution they can, and then they move on and put the whole thing to manufacturing. And then after they have put that to manufacturing, they give it on to sales, and sales sells the stuff. With the result that in the past there were problems that, for example, marketing has identified. They have produced it, and then it landed with the sales department who in fact realized, well, we can't sell this because there's a problem. This is a product we can't sell because people don't want to use it this way, they want to use it that way. And those things happened because those steps were in different departments. They were split up. So in a design thinking approach, you would actually get all those people around the desk. And by all those people, I mean all those people. So that starts with your engineers, research and development people, advertising people, sales people, even people that have nothing to do with the product. And this is also a trend you see sometimes in big companies now. A friend of mine recently started working in a bank with a degree in geography, which clearly wasn't what his position meant, but it helped him to, or it helped the bank to just get new brains in. And this is the idea also in design thinking, to get many brains working on one project. And this can solve immense problems. So a classical example for a product that everybody knows that has been solved in that way, and I get really tired of taking Apple as an example, but actually they get some things right, even though I don't agree with suing Samsung, but that's a different story. So recently I got my parents to buy a new iMac. You know those PCs, pretty much, computers, whatever. And it took me 20 minutes to take down our old computer. So I pulled out all the cables. I pulled out all the cables off the wall. Have you ever tried trying to unplug a USB hub that has been used for 5 years without touching? It's a gazillion cables, and it's impossible to work with. So it took me 20 minutes to take that thing down. And then my dad came in with this iMac. He put it on the desk, put the power socket in, and then he went back looking for the cables to connect the rest of it. And I was like, Dad, where are you going? And he's like, I'm getting the cables. And I was like, there's no cables. He's like, what? So, and this is something, just to put it in context again, we don't focus around the product, but we focus around the solution or the problem itself. So we put the problem in the center. The problem is, what do we want to do? What do we want to do? Want to watch videos of kittens. I much appreciated Michel's meme picture. This is what we want to do. And then we see, we have people trying to get a solution together. So engineers will then say, well, we need a screen for that, and we need a computer, and we need a keyboard. And then maybe a designer might say, hold on, but why do we need a screen and a computer separate? Can we not have this all in one? And the problem with design thinking is that those things, you don't know who in the company is going to have the idea. And so I skipped my slides, sorry. So what do marketers do now instead of being the department? Well, I would argue that marketers are actually really, really good at understanding problems. That's what they've been trained for. They've been trained to understand problems, to maybe look for solutions, to communicate with people. And so marketers shouldn't exactly be shot. Rather, they should try to facilitate the design process, because in the end of the day, marketers can be those persons that are involved in every process, but marketers should also step back from their chair and give more power to every individual in a company, so that by doing so, they empower people to work on the product and maybe have people who don't have the same qualifications as they have, but still are working in the company, are passionate for the company, have their idea heard, and having them express their idea. So the problem is, how can we do that in a company? Can we do that easily in a company? So if you are working in a startup, and I'm working for a startup right now myself, I've experienced the situation. We've been 12 people in an office. And that happens naturally. If it's 12 people in an office, especially if you're sharing the same space, and if programmers are not sitting in one corner and sales are sitting in another corner, but if the desks are mixed, yes, that might make some communication more difficult. But on the bottom line, you get marketing or salespeople who know much more about the product because they sit next to developers and, oh, that's pretty cool. What's that you're building right now? And on the same time, you have developers who can hear you on the phone being shouted at by a client because something doesn't work. So it's about sharing pains, and this is something that a design strategy in a company facilitates. Now, this works in a startup pretty fine. Does it work in big companies? This is a more difficult question. The answer is it has worked in big companies, and big companies have used this approach to work. Just to quote one example, in 2006, massive badass manufacturing company Procter & Gamble, who probably everybody right now of us is carrying one of their products in your purse or in your pocket or somewhere with you. They do everything from cleaning supplies to soap to shampoo. They had, I think they also do make Pringles if they still exist. They had a problem with declining sales and people weren't picking up on their products and so on. And then they had a new manager coming in by the name of A.G. Lafley, who was a really fond supporter of the design thinking mindset. And he basically found tools how employees, even if it's only the cleaning lady, can raise their concerns to the upper level. He found processes how to make those things possible. So yes, if you are a company like Procter & Gamble that has 110,000 employees, it's not going to be easy to get all people around the same desk because that desk still had to be built. But using modern tools, using web-based tools, using technology, and using creativity allows even big companies to apply design thinking approaches to have people sitting around maybe a virtual desk and changing things. So try using marketers for their true skills, understanding the problem. And if you're a small company, as I said, make your people work besides each other, because that helps them using their skills to a better end. And you don't any longer need a marketing department. In our startup, for example, we have now 16 employees. We don't have a marketing department because we have actually found that we have one person who started as a sales manager who's actually an incredible copywriter. So he's now half of the time doing sales. The other half of the time he's copywriter. And because he's doing those two functions, he also knows what the clients want because he's in touch with the clients and he knows how to phrase it. So I guess the bottom line is that every company has a great set of skills and has great people. And they are all outside the marketing departments too. So forget about the marketing departments, keep them for the function of facilitating, but try to push it forward in your company to the lowest level so that everybody can take a stake of it, a stake in it, sorry. And you never know who in your company might be the really smart people. Be ready to be surprised. And thank you for your time. Also, this was meant to be just to start you thinking. So by no means I think I know everything about it. So I'm not sure if there are questions. I try to keep it rather short if there are questions. If not, I would. Are there questions? Oh, yes. Oh, you are always asking a question.
Oh, come on. You just were speaking about eliminating marketing department. Getting back to the old-fashioned example of Apple, isn't it just the marketing department that made Apple that to where it is at?
Fair point. Good point. Apple, I think they have something. They have. I don't know, when they sued Samsung, they released what their marketing budget was. And it's something, it's pretty much the budget that the European Union would like to save the euro. They spent every year. Yes, but the Apple marketing department is actually, became really well at just doing that, at uniting people on projects. So yes, it does some, but also the Apple marketing department goes much further than that. So they also incorporate, for example, the advertising and so on. They do much of the stuff in-house. So I agree with what you say, and I'm not trying to completely abolish marketing departments. I'm just trying to make a point about thinking differently about it and taking a step back from the classical departmental view.
So you're basically saying that these marketing departments should be burned down and thrown away because you should rather instead create an environment or a culture in the company to encourage all the employees to be the marketers if they're facing if they're facing the customers, because they should use that, using the design thinking approach.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, going back to Apple, if you go to an Apple store, all the employees are trained to learn how to speak to the customers in a certain way, so they don't discourage you or make them feel bad. So certain things like the marketing department basically encourages the employees using certain ways to do marketing, using whatever job facility that they do.
So I'm not encouraging of burning anything down, even though that would look quite fun. But I'm also, the bottom line of my talk is, despite the title and everything, I'm not encouraging for marketers to disappear from this planning. I'm just encouraging for marketing to get out of their departments and to get to spread across the across every level of a company. Of course, if you're a company that's big enough, you might need 1 or 2 or even at the end a few thousand people coordinating that effort. But that should be their work. They shouldn't just restrictive be the only people that say how a company communicates.